Important point is that you should be trying to introduce new ideas outside of the world that you know,
Yes.
outside of the world that you inhabit every single day.
Hey, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Sahu, the Growth and Leadership Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, a symbolism of women in power, a former director of marketing and operations at the Durban Chamber of Commerce, and now the director of strategic partnerships for Mary's Meal, a global initiative that addresses extreme poverty in the world's poorest communities. Please welcome Taweni Gondwe Xaba. Hey, Taweni, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Shabir?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for joining me today. And I mean, it's incredible to have you on the podcast and chat to you about just the projects that you initiated, the projects you've worked with, and just to give a background of who you are and also women in power and women in business as well.
Okay. Gosh, there's so much to tell. It's been a long journey. On the real life front, I'm 49 years old, so I've been around for half a century. So I'd like to believe I've picked up a couple of lessons that I can share today.
That's
And
that's incredible.
yeah, and then on the professional front, I've been in business as an exec in various roles for the last 24 years. So I've worked in publishing, in television, I've worked in newspapers, I've worked in nonprofit organizations. That's kind of my background. So I would say I'm a communications professional. Or a leader in communications. Probably that would encapsulate everything
That
simply.
yeah, I think that puts it into a sphere. But how did you get into the space and how did you grow into your different roles? And I mean, you've now an executive, you've taken on bigger challenges and obviously mission driven in all activities and opportunities you take on board. So where did it all start?
It all started without a clue, to be honest with you. It started without a clue, just like I think a lot of young people would be after graduating from varsity. Even the program I did in varsity, I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. So my mom had to, who's an academic, um, she sort of said, look, okay, what subjects do you like? And I said, well, I really like English and I'm really good at English. She says, okay, fine. Why don't you do a degree that has something to do with what you like? So I said, well, I like reading. She said, okay, do a degree. So I did literature, a double major in literature and linguistics, and from then I graduated, top of my class, prize winning student, etc. But I still didn't have a clue what I wanted to do now with that degree that I had in my pocket. And then, moved down to Cape Town at that point. And then someone, we were watching TV and someone said to me, that's a really interesting commercial. And I said, yeah, that's a very interesting ad. I wonder how they make ads. In my mind at that point, I thought that adverts were made at the TV station. I didn't know there was something called, an ad agency, or that someone could actually get a job writing, which is what I love still more than anything else that I do is to write. So out of that, we started doing research. Unfortunately, there was no Google, so there were actual visits to actual libraries involved. And I went and I started asking around, and I found out no, to be able to write those adverts, those funny ads that I saw on TV, also copywriter. And to be a copywriter, there's a qualification that you can get. So that's how I ended up sort of getting a bursary to go to the AAA School of Advertising, and I studied there. I did my postgraduate there, specializing in copywriting, and that's how I got into work. I didn't have a clue. I just knew I really loved to write, and I also knew I was really good at writing. But it took a lot of inputs from different people to help me find, what I'm good at. And then after I found what I'm good at, then I could say, well, how do I apply what I'm good at in a context in which someone will actually part with money for for that? Um, and so I ended up with advertising. So it was quite accidental in a lot of ways. But once I got into advertising, I just felt like I'd found my tribe. I just fit in. I made sense, and it made sense. And so my career really grew from there.
And how would you say advertising has sort of has it encapsulated sort of your being and your balance in daily life? So like when you look at an ad, I know when I being an economist in sort of the space, when I see something, I always look like further into it and I'm like, oh, what are these factors and sort of going in deeper. Do you look at ads and how do you feel social media has influenced your take on advertisements as well as strategic positions in advertising?
Yeah, look, I think everything is kind of like in flux at the moment. The advent of social media, I think we all knew at the beginning when we got our first little MySpace account that something special was happening, but we were not sure what that something special was. And then, fast forward to Facebook, you were kind of like chatting with friends. But in the beginning, it was really genuinely about posting photos of your dogs and your lunch. And now it has evolved into something so much more, something so very powerful. To the point that now even the owners of those platforms can get to a point where they, remove power from heads of state by removing access to social media. So there's no denying that social media is incredibly impactful in shaping perceptions and positions on everything, pretty much. So for me now, I think raising a teenager and a couple of twins, um, I'm starting to see. Even in our conversations, the influence of what is out there in digital media. And mind you, they're not allowed to be on social media, but just their access even to things like YouTube
Yeah.
and Weverse, where they check out music and stuff like that. They come home with the most incredible ideas, and they engage on issues in a way that frankly is a little bit frightening to me. Some of those things coming out of a 10-year-old mouth, talking about politics. And like last night, we had a debate on communism versus capitalism. And I could barely make sense because I was just, first of all, shocked that we were having this conversation. But so that's the impact of social media. It has changed even, dynamic, like I'm saying, from government in terms of politics, the Trump Twitter saga, all the way down to the micro household. Myself as a mom with my children, engaging with ideas around what the world is about, and also what product is about. The definition of product has changed. People have become the product. And before we used to say people are commodifying human beings or sort of taking advantage. But now we ourselves are doing that, and turning ourselves into products to be sold and to be, I don't know, to be commodified and
Yeah. No,
the word to monetize ourselves. It's quite frightening.
no, I definitely see that. And recently I joined TikTok, and I'm not gonna lie, I've learned a lot more on TikTok than I did in school, actually. The amount of stuff that people are actually creating. Um, and it's just surprising me because I tell my folks and I'm like, you know what, I just saw this on TikTok, and they're like, what's TikTok? I'm like, never mind, you're too old for that. But let's just go back to what I've learned. And it's just what people are creating and the content they're creating. It's creating a different mindset in terms of entrepreneurship,
Yeah,
business, language, and just human development. And I
yeah.
think, and how have you? Are you on TikTok? I think this is it's an interesting one, or maybe just browsing through the feed.
I am on TikTok. The only reason I'm on TikTok, I don't even know how to navigate my way around TikTok. I've never posted anything. I can hardly see where anything is, but I joined because that was the condition in which my daughter could join. So I say to her, you can join if I join, and we must be connected. And then we were connected for about a month or so. After which she then informed me, said, "You do know that I can keep you in a different circle or something. You don't you might not see everything that I do." So she's telling me what I'm missing. She says there are things I can do on TikTok that you can't see. You need to be aware of this. I was like, oh my goodness. And so So yeah, learning never ends. I'm a media and marketing professional, so learning never ends. I've got a date with her one of these days to actually give me a tutorial to actually teach me how it works. But I enjoy watching random videos that pop up. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know who puts them there. I don't know where they come. So the architecture of TikTok as well is quite fascinating. And maybe once I figure out the architecture, I can say, yeah, I'm with it. But for now, I'm on everything except that.
No, that's fantastic. I think it's definitely blown up, and with people being in lockdown, it's definitely
Yeah.
taken off, and their strategic partnerships as well. With I think it's with an educational based platform now, and just sharing knowledge,
Mm,
and I think it's
yeah.
just become incredible. And what have you learned? I mean, you have an extensive career in the field of marketing and business and strategy. What are the key lessons that you've taken from maybe a business point of view, as well as personal capacity?
Sure. Goodness, I've learned lessons that will fill volumes, absolute volumes. I think maybe I can put them into three categories. The first is around what I've learned about myself in the context of business. The second category, I'd say what I've learned about my job, the actual technical skills of
Yeah,
being able to do that help me to do what I get paid for. And then the third one, I've learned about my interface with the world, as well as my job's interface with the world. And that, I guess, is what led to my quest to always work in mission driven positions, because in the process of learning more about myself and and mastering the technical skills that help me to do my job, and then figuring out how do these things that I do actually impact the world or not, I started discovering that I needed to do work that meant something. Uh, I couldn't
yeah.
just be a hack. So on a certain level, I paid my dues. Starting out in advertising. The first adverts I ever did were for hemorrhoid treatment cream. So I always say to people that I genuinely started at the bottom in my career. But from doing that to moving on to sell, like bigger brands, higher education institutions, newspapers, multinational, TV networks and things like that. In the process, I've learned how to get really, really good at what I do. And I think I've gotten quite good at knowing myself and being myself. And the piece that is really evolving now, which I feel see as the next season of my life, is that third piece. How do those things engage with and intersect with the rest of the world, to give me meaning to my life?
Yeah, and I mean that's incredible. And would you mind maybe sharing a few of those lessons?
Yes, for sure. I think the first one is that you really need to be yourself. If you are yourself, as much as possible, the best version of you. That doesn't mean just take yourself out there and don't try to become the best version of yourself. But if you take the best version of yourself out every single time, there will be consistency to your story.
Yeah,
When there's consistency to your story, you don't need to be reinventing persona and sort of conning people into believing in you. So one of the things that gives me the greatest pride and joy really in my life is that the person that most people met in my first job um, is still the person that they engage with today. The person my family knows and my children know and my mother knows is the same person that my colleagues know and people that I engage with in the world know. So consistency, I think, is a thing that I've learned, and I learned that from watching two individuals who I would say were my biggest probably mentors or role models professionally, um, and that was Jane Raffaele who was the founder of Associated Media Publishing, the woman who brought us Cosmopolitan magazine, Oprah magazine, which I edited for a while, and she brought, House and Leisure, all those kind of things. And Jane was just, still is just a consistent person, and because she's consistent in terms of, her behavior, her just the way she engages with people, but at the same time she's constantly growing all the time. She reads a lot, she's exposed, with a very diverse group of people, but she is consistent and she's just a solid person. I've seen the kind of professional respect that she gets. She doesn't, she didn't build her career or her reputation on Instagram. It wasn't there. She didn't build it on perceptions. She built it on hard work.
Yes.
So her work speaks for her. Without her, I mean, she's not on. She's got a couple of profiles up on social media, but she never posts anything. Um, and she's retired now as a chairman of Associated Media Publishing. But that consistency and that solidness as a person just inspired me from a very young age. I longed to work for her. And the day that it finally came to pass, I just couldn't actually believe it was happening. And the second person was my mother. My mother is a professional, she was an academic, and then she moved into university administration and recently retired as a. And I always say to people that my role model, I learned from the breast, literally.
Yeah.
The person that she was at home is the person that she was at work, is the person that she was in public. So just her consistency, she didn't act as Dr. Kaunda. She was just herself all the time, and that is a quality that I think I respect a lot in people, and I try exceptionally hard to be consistent like that because I see the reward they got, the two of them, for being those kind of people. They get trust from people. They get respect for what they do, and also people can know exactly what they stand for, and know, and it gives them that professional credibility.
Yeah.
And both of them are retired, and I'd like to believe that I am the second coming of the two.
Of a fusion of two great minds
It's,
going into
two great
the next century.
minds. Yeah, and you know something, I think a lot of young people today, I do see it just based on, I mean, I'm connected to a lot of young people for whatever reason. I don't know why I'm connected to them, but I enjoy being around young people. Um, but I see sometimes, the kind of things that they post online, etc. You can see someone trying to curate a perception of themselves. You don't have to. If you are a consistent person, you will never have to curate anything
Yes.
because your life will speak for itself across all platforms in all contexts. You don't have to curate a persona, and have this like an image of perfection. Because guess what? You're still going to make mistakes, and goodness knows I've made all of my mistakes, and there's still more to come. I'm sorry to announce. There's still more. Despite everything that I've learned and I've known, I'm still going to make those mistakes. But the point consistently yourself. You never have to be looking over your shoulder to figure out who am I supposed to be in this group of people? Who am I supposed to be in that group of people? It just creates so much mental tension and so much stress, completely unnecessary. Everything that you are, if you bring all of that to the table, you'll be amazed how many people love to receive everything that you are.
And I think that that's the most important thing is meaningful and authentic relationships that we
Yeah.
build with peers and just humans around us. And I think that's something we missed in a transition phase, I would say, from millennials into Gen Z. um,
Yeah.
and I mean it's about the lessons and the advice that our parents instilled in us that we can carry on for generations because those are values that carry on from a foundation phase into just being a good person at heart going forward.
Absolutely. In fact, I always feel like, sometimes, and I suppose it's to be expected. It might, it's part of the journey of, of evolving and growing as a human being, is that you need to explore and and engage and investigate different ideas from around the world, different ways of being, etc. But if you get to a point where you are everything to all people, then you are nothing to yourself.
Yeah.
You really are nothing. And when there's nothing at your core and there's nothing to ground you and to keep you steady, to know like, okay, hang on, this is my jumping off point. Then you will fall for absolutely anything. Um, and you will stand for nothing, as the saying goes. And in the end, you will make no impact because no one can hold on to like that fly blown out off from the tree. It's beautiful, it's pretty, but it's flying, it's gone. There's no substance to it, there's no solidity, there's no value really at the end. I think value comes from having internal substance as a person. I think the word you use is authentic, and that's absolutely the correct word. Be authentic, and then what your education does is simply enhance your authenticity and propel you to the next level. Um, don't you know? It's important to be inspired by people. I know a lot of people, young women especially, do say to me, "Oh, you inspire me," and that scares me a little bit sometimes because it means, uh, in many cases, that someone wants to be like me. There is absolutely no need to want to be like me,
Yeah.
but I
The,
think maybe you can
be
you can
yourself.
look at for the qualities. Yes, be yourself, but look at the qualities and maybe ask me questions around how am I able to hold on to myself and hold on to my authenticity, so you can utilize the same to hold on to your own.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? To hold on to your own so that you're able to walk through life confident that you know yourself. If nothing else, you know yourself.
No, that's powerful, and I think when we as we go through the ages, and I mean young professionals coming into the industry, but also graduates, it's asking that those questions to seniors and experienced individuals, that how did they find themselves, and maybe take lessons from that to maybe not make the mistakes they made, to make your own unique decisions in sort of the process to reach those career goals.
Well, you see, what's sad about it is that as much as I'm saying all that I'm saying, and saying, young people do, need to have a foundation and hold on and sort of learn from others. On the flip side, I also know that there are a lot of who are everybody before millennials who are also not generous in sharing those lessons.
Yeah.
Everybody is. I'm talking about this curated persona that we see in the socials and the front page of magazines and so on. That no one tells the truth. Well, not no one, but it's an exaggeration. But a lot of people don't tell the truth. Everyone wants their journey to just appear magical and gilded in silver and gold, and they're like the new wonderkind of technology, or the new hot shot in politics. Like everything is the latest and the greatest. And when you don't share your authentic stories, you are robbing these young people,
Yes.
because then when they make a mistake or when they fail or when something doesn't work out, that's how people get into depression or people give up because they think, well, clearly I'm a failure. And because so many people are trying to act like it's easy, and that everything that I've said up to now is it's not easy, but
Yeah.
it's important to do, and it's not optional. But I'm not saying that it's easy. One of the things that would help to make it a bit easier is if um, professionals who have gone before would share knowledge, would share the truth about their professional experiences, to help young people to grow. But it's a pity that not many have make the time to do that.
That's true, and I mean that's the goal of the podcast, to try and just break the ice in the sort of field, in getting people to chat about their professional experiences, because from my perspective, coming into the corporate world, as well as chatting to a lot of young people that are coming out of university, is they're more focused on that job title and the salary, but rather than their mental health in the space, their physical health, and how they're
Look,
maintaining those sort
mental
of things.
health is very, very, yeah, it's Yeah, the job title and the salary. Look, I understand why those seem appealing and they are important. I
Yeah.
want to do a job without getting paid personally. No, I will not
Same.
do
I'm
it. No,
same.
no, I won't do it. Number one, because I think that I'm worth being paid for what I do. But number two, I've got practical realities of three children. How am I going to do a job and not get paid? How are those kids going to eat? So the desire to make money is a natural and a healthy desire. No one needs to feel ashamed of it.
Yeah.
And on the other side as well, I work very hard. I apply myself. I'm that girl that's awake at 1:15 in the morning because I want to make the presentation perfect. Even though my boss yesterday said it was perfect, I can still do it. I'm still kind of like thinking there must be a way I can improve on it. That's because I want the professional validation that what I do is different and it's unique and it's a cut above. So wanting that title, etc. There's also nothing wrong with that because I work hard. Why shouldn't I get that title? The problem comes in when you want to take shortcuts to the
Yeah.
money, shortcuts to the title. That's where
Yes.
things really fall apart. If you want, if you, you're going to wangle your way through schmoozing and smooching and whatnot to sort of endear yourself to your superiors so that you can have a professional advantage over your peers who work maybe as hard, whose work might even be better than yours, and then you get in that way. That's what I'm calling a shortcut. If you, in the cheapest, lowest terms, decide that the casting couch route is the route you're going to take to attain the position or the salary of your dreams, that's a shortcut. The problem with shortcuts is that you end up in very, 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 very bad places because you won't know what you're doing and you get exposed eventually,
Yeah.
especially if you're not like street smart. And when you get exposed, then you take a long slide back. I'll give you a little um, story of something that happened to me, which I always, my kids always tease me about. Once there was a fire on a mountain when I was still a journalist. And there was a fire, and I saw the fire, and I said something's happening there. So I phoned the newsroom. I said I've just left the office. There's a fire on the mountain. On such and such a site, and they said, "Oh, really? Do we need to send someone there to come and check it out?" I said, "No, let me check it first. Maybe it's a controlled fire. Maybe the mountain maybe it's a controlled fire by the city. So once I see it, then I'll phone you if you need to send a journalist to come and take pictures because it was spectacular the way the flames were." And then I drove down this little road. And I asked a man walking along the road, I said, "Am I going in the right direction? I'm trying to get to that fire." He said, "Oh, no problem. You should just turn left when you get to the top." But when he said turn left, his hand gestured right. And in my head, I registered the gesture to the right. I didn't listen to the words, turn left. So, of course, when I got there, I turned right and drove down and found myself in a graveyard, a literal graveyard. And I had a tiny little car and I couldn't reverse. It was dark. My wheel got into a hole. I had to step out and push my car out of the graveyard. It was one of the most frightening experiences of my life because I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to those things. I don't watch horror movies and stuff, but it has always stuck with me. I said, you know what happens when you watch people's gestures, but you don't listen to the words. When you watch people's gestures, you don't listen to the words. You must make sure there's alignment between what is being said and what is being done. So when you listen to different people around you giving you advice, make sure there's an alignment between what is said and what is being shown or demonstrated. That's one way to stay out of trouble. Um, and the shortcut, trying to take a shortcut. All I needed to do was to say to the newsroom, send somebody, and they go and check it out. But I wanted to be the one to go break the story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the one who's going to go there. I want to check this fire out. I want to take pictures. I want to send it to the newsroom. They'll post. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes we try to get there very quickly, not by the right means, and then you end up in a graveyard, literally dead. That's what happened. That's what happened to me. Yeah.
No, that's and from all these experiences, I guess what would you tell someone that's maybe trying to pursue a career like yours? And we understand not being like you, but maybe taking some of those characteristics or those qualities. And how would you advise someone wanting to pursue a career in marketing, in journalism, and making their way to the top as executives in the process?
Yeah. I think the profession, the professional line that I've taken in marketing, communications, media, all of that stuff. There is one very obvious risk, a very obvious risk in it. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors, a huge amount,
Mm,
including, by the way, in mainstream media.
yes.
Um, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. If you are not wide awake as to who you are, to go back to my first point of you have to be consistent and authentic, and you have to know yourself. If you don't invest or spend enough time in learning who you are and in developing who you are and developing your backbone, when you get into this industry, it will eat you up, it will spit you out, or it will turn you into a monster. Because the issue, the glaring problem with the industry as a whole on a broad level is, I would say, our Achilles heel would be the issue of integrity and
Yes.
ethics. So, what do you share? What do you not share? What do you um, you know, how do you respect other people's word, and how do you trust? Go back to your original question around the social media aspect. People are curating all sorts of things which have nothing to do with who they really are. I know people who post things on their pages. I know for a fact they don't live like that.
Yes.
That's not their real life because I know them personally. But the picture for those if you look online, is a life of perfection and all this kind of stuff. And that has unfortunately permeated even into mainstream media. If you want to make it in this industry, and if you have got a long term kind of view to how you want to build your career, you have to know yourself, you have to master the skills of the industry, and then you have to figure out how those two things intersect with the rest of the world. Is it going to intersect with an approach of integrity and ethics, or are you going to go in the opposite direction? So it goes back to those three things that I mentioned at the beginning. I think that's what
Yes.
has helped me because of my consistency. Just as a person, I try very hard to stay as close to the real me as possible. I'm a human being. Maybe there are times when I stray from that, but not consciously. Consciously, I'm constantly trying to stay as close to myself as possible because I don't want one day to have to explain people are talking about that I don't, I want one version of me out in the world. And I see that really as probably one of my greatest accomplishments, that my kids know the person that my boss knows at work, which means that
Yes.
I speak very clearly. And at my funeral, I sincerely hope that when people are talking, no one will be giggling in the back and saying, really? you know, I would like all the speakers I've spoken, everyone to say, yeah, they're talking about the same girl. So my advice to young people, especially once you go into the communications field, ethics and integrity, but it doesn't start on the outside, it starts with you. How do you know yourself? How do you treat yourself? How do you treat other people? How do you apply yourself to mastering your craft and your work? And then how do you make sure that what you do is going to mean something in the world, and make a difference in the world and leave something positive behind? Because power working in this industry, we can make or break people. We can make or break companies. Um,
Yeah.
in fact, we can make or break governments just by what we write, just by what we put out there. And there has to be a level of responsibility that one has. And you can't develop that level of responsibility without having responsibility over yourself in the first place.
Yes. I mean, I've taken so much in the last few minutes. I'm like writing it down here, and I'm like, I need to implement this in sort of my sort of my perspective and how I'm looking at things and stuff. But and as well, what are the resources that you may have used in sort of that space to get to where you are? Maybe resources now that you currently use, or books that you've read that you maybe pass on to your daughters for the lessons to take on. But what would you recommend to the students that are coming into the field?
Oh my goodness. So I am like a reader. I'm trying to find this title of this. I'm a big reader. I love um, I love books that I'm not crazy about biographies, but I like um, human interest type stories
Yes.
because I find that I learn a lot, uh, even from fiction, looking at the dynamics of how people engage. I think that's how I learned how to, in terms of stakeholder relations, which is a big part of the job that I do. I think I learned a lot from novels, just from seeing how different characters engage with each other. So it's not so much, I think, as it's not so much the title of the book as the fact that you should be reading first place. Just
Yes.
read, read. Interesting thing. Read something longer than a caption on an Instagram post. We live in the world of quotes. Every quotes myself, but more often than not, I've actually read the book that the quote came from. So I understand the context of the quote, which is important. Obviously, someone can say, well, it's easy for you because you're a literature major and you're in communication, so you read a lot. I'm obliged to read because if I don't read, what am I going to write? I'm going to, especially
True.
in business writing, working in the kind of jobs that I do business writing now. It's not fiction, it's business writing, but it all has to be underpinned by facts and research, etc. That is one of the ways that you establish and really cement your credibility as a professional when you know what you're talking about. There is nothing more delicious than being in that meeting and everybody debating and discussing and speculating and pontificating, and you're able to bring facts to the table because you've done research, because you've read, because you're knowledgeable, you're informed. So my advice is just read. Um, I mean, I've read Jeffrey Sachs. I don't think that's a fun read for most people, but it's part of kind of the kind of thing that I enjoy. Obviously, uh, Yuval Noah Harari. Everything he writes is like gold to me. As a historian, *Sapiens* and all his books I've read. They're like very long books. I don't read them because they're thick books. I read them because they help me to be less thick. you know.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I really
So
enjoyed this collection as well.
no, he's amazing. So for me, it's also just the way he thinks. One of the things you pick up from reading books is you get, especially reading books by really good writers who take time to research. You learn how to develop your own lines of reasoning and how you present your case and how you talk and how your voice comes across. It's an opportunity to experiment and to say, okay, maybe this is how I would wish to present my ideas. So when my kids, I incentivize them to read. Everybody has to read a book a week. And quite frankly, I pay them $10 a book. And I don't care if someone says it's bribery and corruption, because for me, it's about what I'm getting at the end of the day. Number one, they get to learn that nothing comes for free. So they're
Yes.
working for it in a way. Um, but also, they get to learn so much more through the books that they read. So when you talk about what am I going to leave my daughters, I think one of the legacies for me is what my mother left me, and that is reading. Read, 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 read.
And it's such a powerful tool that we underestimate. And I wasn't a huge avid reader until I got into the space of more research, and I was reading 4 to 5 journals a week, and then you have to put that into process. And then I got more into books, and with having a busy schedule, I'm like, okay, sitting in traffic, I'm maybe going to get an audiobook and I'm going to listen to it on the way in traffic, and then I'll go back, I'll download the book, and then
Yeah,
I'll start making notes about what I've listened on my journey to work and my journey back home. And
yeah,
it's just those small little increments of taking time, even if it's an
yeah.
audiobook, you're still taking in that knowledge to
Totally.
set some time for yourself and just highlight those key words. And
Mm,
I've just implemented that in sort of a corporate setting. And one of those two crucial books that I took was the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People and just Love Languages. I
Yeah,
can't remember the author, but just using it in business. And when you interacting with new business partnerships or dealing with friends in that space, it's just nice to understand their love language, to be like,
yeah.
you know what, here I'm early on time. Maybe
Mm.
they love being on time and punctual, and just allowing them those little small characteristics make a huge difference to how, as you said, authenticity.
Absolutely. So, like I also have a very diverse range like that, in that, I can read Homo Deus for 2 weeks, and normally it would take me like 3 days if I was on holiday. But having children and being in a full time job, it also takes me bits and pieces. That's the thing that people don't understand. You can do it in bits and pieces and
Yeah.
slowly incrementally start to introduce new ideas. And then the following week, I will also read the book you're talking about, The Five Love Languages. That's by Dr. Gary Chapman. He's also one
Yes.
of my students. And now he's also got The Five Love Languages for Children, which I got because I wanted to understand, my kids a lot better. I believe in conscious parenting. I don't want to, I don't want to find myself in somebody's book one day in the future about how much I messed up their childhood. So I do try to invest in them. And yeah, so those if you look at the Homo Deus, that's about increasing my understanding of the world, which is part of increasing that second leg of my little tripod, which is about my skill level and my understanding of what I do. And then when I read the five love languages, it's more about how do I engage with the world, which includes my family and other people. So try and make your reading diverse. I also, I love my favorite and my big secret indulgence is K dramas on Netflix. Watch Korean dramas. The important point is that you should be trying to introduce new ideas outside of the world that you know,
Yes.
outside of the world that you inhabit every single day. So, for heaven's sake, I've never been to Korea. I know nothing about Korea except that my children are obsessed with K-pop music and in my house. I've got kids learning Korean online and stuff like that because our kids are homeschooled, so they're doing Korean just from their love of pop music from that part of the world. I mean, look at the impact and the influence. So I say to them, right, you can like the pop music, but you're not allowed to just be a consumer. So now they're doing a paper together, a project, the three of them, on Korean culture and through the ages and history. That's part of them learning something new. My hope is that they will also be curious, like I've always been curious, just to
Yes.
know about other parts of the world, be curious about how other people think. Believe it or not, the whole world doesn't think like us.
Yeah.
I know it's a shocker. We think that our philosophies and what we believe and our politics and our religion and our culture is the beginning and the end of the world. It genuinely isn't. It place with a lot of different influences, and the more you get to be exposed through books, through film, through music, to different parts of the world, the more prepared you are to engage at a high level and when you become a professional.
Wow. And it takes you to the next level. And I mean, your next level is Mary's Meals, and it's a global initiative. And so tell me more about your role in the project, but also how did you come about it, and what's really driving you to that next step in a global initiative such as Mary's Meals?
Yeah, let me tell you something. It's genuinely a dream come true. Mary's Meals International is an international movement. It's more than a job. It really is a movement of people who are working really hard to make sure that that how do we sleep at night? We can't continue sleeping at night, not um, not knowing what's happening to the children in the world.
Yeah.
And kids are sleeping hungry every single day. Kids are sleeping hungry. It doesn't make sense. How do we allow that? So that's what moved me. I love children. I absolutely love children. I'm a Sunday school teacher. I am obsessed with my nieces and nephews and my own kids. Um, so I have a parenting show on radio. And so this for me, working with Mary's Meals across 19 territories, 19 countries in the world, just to raise funds for a very important job of feeding children is like a dream come true for me, because I'm able to now leverage my professional skills, all the experience and networks that I've built globally over the last 24 years, and use that to feed children that means so much to me. It's just the perfect fit. I'm really, really just excited, very blessed to have this job.
Wow. And I mean, I researched the site, and when you sent me the link, I went and I looked in, and I mean, it's an amazing initiative. And I mean, I wish you all the best for the journey ahead. And I'll be putting those links in the description as well for our viewers and our listeners to get in touch with the organization as well. And whether they can help or volunteer in any sort of space or form, it would be really great for them as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. They should, if you go onto marysmeals.org, literally on the first page, you will see exactly how you can help. And the most important thing is like, there's no amount too small to
Yes.
donate, to make sure that we feed kids around the world. The thing that most people maybe might not know, Shavin, is that when you feed these kids, it's not just a do-gooder type of at the end of the day, these are the kids who, if we don't educate them, because remember, Mary's Meals mission is to feed kids in a place of education. So
Yeah.
the feeding happens in a school context. The uptake and enrollment shoots up in every area that Mary's Meals goes into, especially rural areas where parents won't even bother to send their kids to school at all because I mean kids are hungry. So when they know that if you go to school, you're going to get a meal guaranteed, kids will enroll and parents will be pushing for the kids to enroll. That's what's important, is that you have to see this as an economic imperative for
Yeah.
each country to make sure that kids are fed. If kids are fed, they'll get into education. If kids are educated, you're talking about enhancing or building the capacity of the country in many different areas. So it's not just about being a do-gooder, but it's also about being quite capitalistic in a way. It's an investment in the future of the country.
Yeah.
There's the pipeline for talent. It all happens through education. So, when people donate to Mary's Meals, that's what they're doing. They are creating a pipeline. They're empowering us to make sure that that pipeline is strong, and young people, especially children, can get into school. And stay in school because they know they're going to get that meal, and therefore there's no need for them to be distracted from the endeavor of education.
No, I mean and I mean the initiative is just it's just so powerful, and the movement just to encourage people. And I mean for society, I mean kids are the next generation and the next future, and having an education not only lifts people out of poverty, as Nelson Mandela mentions, it also changes the way society operates as well. And that's what we really want, is that generational wealth and growth.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's. I hope people encourage every single person to go to marysmeals.org, go to the website, have a look at the work that's being done, and support the work. There's something every single person can do to contribute. In some cases, it's even your skills or your abilities or volunteering. There are many ways to make a difference.
No, and I'm going to definitely put that link in the description so tons of people can actually just get involved and just know about the organization as well.
Excellent.
Just wrapping up on a last few questions. And I mean, I always love asking these two questions. If you were in my shoes right now as the interviewer, what questions have I missed right now for you that maybe you would want to ask yourself or just share with the audience?
Yeah, question. Well, I think maybe the one piece that maybe I haven't talked about is how I refuel.
Yes.
This takes out of me. And how do I put something back in so that there's something more to give again tomorrow? I think a lot of execs are always in that space of trying to get a work-life balance. So yeah, maybe I would ask about work-life balance, and my answer to the question would be you have to have something that you're absolutely obsessed and passionate about. And for me, that's my children. I mean, literally, I always say to people, my kids, yes, are my obligation, but they're also my hobby. Literally, they are my hobby. I have my kids, I have my dogs. So family is what centers me, is what grounds me. Um, the world can whip me out there, and I always come home with my tail between my legs. But I know when I get here, I'm 100% loved, knowing that really, really gives me the yes to go out tomorrow. It really
No,
does.
that's powerful. And I mean, balance is a huge importance as you start growing in your career professionally. It's having those stable structures and those routines that you build that just create balance and a foundation to
Yeah,
explore new ideas as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And the last question, and I mean, it's been a great conversation. And although 2020 has been a good year for some, but also tragic for others, what has 2020 given you?
2020 gave me a lot, and it feels quite difficult to say that in a context where people lost so much.
Yes.
But what it gave me, though, my mom was down for medical treatment, and then she got stuck in SA because of the travel ban, and so she ended up being here for 8 whole months. Something I never thought I'd ever have with my mom. Now that I'm an adult, living my own life in a different country, we only see each other for holidays, 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at most, over the past 2 decades, you know.
Yeah.
And I got this incredible opportunity, thanks to lockdown and the travel ban, to be in the same space as my mother for 8 months. In that 8 months, I got to have incredible conversations with her, um, that just helped to unlock so many different things, questions that I had. In those 8 months, nothing was left unsaid, not one thing. There is no sorry that was not said. There is no I love you that was not said. There's like literally, it's like being reborn. I mean, my mom and I already had an amazing relationship, but now it's just ridiculous. I got to in those 8 months to talk to my mother just as a person, not
Mm.
as I got to talk to her as a mom, as a woman, because I think growing up, she cut such an imposing figure. She was such an accomplished person, and so important to so many people, that I didn't realize that sometimes I used to hold back because I felt like, my mom is too busy. She's doing very important things, and maybe something that matters to me might not be something that she'll be interested in hearing. And I got to just know a whole other side of my mom that was just insanely beautiful. And 2020 is a year that will go down in history for me as just my year of completion and fulfillment, emotionally, psychologically, um, and it's a beautiful thing. I pray that when I'm older, my daughters and I'll be allowed the opportunity to live long enough for my daughters to connect with me, not as a child, but as a woman, and get to know my story. I got to know my mom's story, and it's an amazing story. And I had no idea about that story because she was just mommy, and
Yeah.
mommy paid the bills, and mommy made sure we went to school, and mommy was. But when you start talking to her just as an individual, so much to learn. And I think, I would encourage young people, whatever the quality or nature of your relationship with those who brought you into this world, or those who have raised you, if those who brought you to this world are not there, to take a bit of time to see what can you explore that can help to unlock you to yourself, and what can you get to know about the other person that will help you to understand them better and therefore understand yourself better. Because the more you know yourself, I go back to my first principle, the more you know yourself, the better you will do at work, and the better you will interface with the rest of the world.
Wow. And I mean, that's a great place to actually leave this podcast off. And I mean, You've been an incredible guest. So insightful, incredibly insightful. I've taken so much of personal notes from this. And I mean, thank you for chatting to me and the audience as a whole. And hopefully we can stay in contact. I know we're going to definitely connect more on Mary's
Yeah.
Meals and create more partnerships where we can. I think that will be really
Mm.
important. But as
Yeah.
well, where can my audience reach you to maybe get involved or or maybe they just want some like lessons or just some advice? Can they reach you on any social platforms?
Yeah, I'm kind of on all the socials. I'm on LinkedIn if it's for professional purposes. I'm on the good old Facebook. Um, and those who are on TikTok, please connect with me so I can show my child that I've got 2 followers on TikTok. Yeah, I think that yeah, those are the plans that you can find me. And you can look also if it's on Instagram, you can look at Hello Mama Bear. Look for Hello Mama Bear, and you'll find my public stuff is there.
Okay, 100%. And thank you again so much. I'm extremely grateful and appreciative of your time that you've taken out of your day and your schedule. And yeah, and I look forward to creating more business partnerships and strategic partnerships going ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Shabir, for having me.
Pleasure.
And
Bye.
I enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
Thanks so much. Ciao.